We're taking a look outside at a little bit of wet pavement as showers move out of the region. Today, a break in the action before our next storm arrives tomorrow.
We're taking a live look this morning from the U.S. Capitol right now. As new this morning, Congress has finished its count of electoral votes, confirming President-elect Joe Biden's victory.
And breaking overnight, President Trump announcing he will agree to an orderly presidential transition. Good morning. Thanks so much for waking up with KREM. I'm Tim Pham.
And I'm Joshua Robinson. Headlines have called yesterday chaos as rioters stormed the Capitol building, and things look much calmer right now by that live shot this morning than they did yesterday, Tim.
Much different. And coming up in just a few moments, we'll break down the events that happened on Capitol Hill. But first, we want to get a check of your local forecast with meteorologist Jeremy Legoo. Good morning, Jeremy.
Well, good morning, Tim. Good morning, Joshua. And good morning, everybody watching from back at home. This morning, we're watching a little bit of light drizzle move out. That means you still have some wet pavement, wet sidewalks, wet roads as you head out the door this morning. I saw someone going for a run at about 4 a.m. They were all dressed for the weather, and I recommend you do too as you head out the door. But as you head through the day, we will dry out. The rain is now done. It's moving its way out, and temperatures are staying quite mild. We're still above freezing across the region. Even a few places in the mid and upper 30s, even approaching 40 degrees this morning. So it is a warm one as we kick things off on this Friday Eve, or Thursday as a lot of people call it. We'll see a few lingering spots of moisture up in higher elevations, but not until tomorrow do we see our next chance of showers move in. Those start early down in the Columbia Basin and take until about the middle part of the day to move in for us. Might see a bit of a wintry mix at the onset, but then it's all rain as temperatures rise later on in the day. We're going to keep a really close eye on this one because it could amount to a little bit of accumulation, but all in all, think a light coating of a sloppy slush at best. 40 degrees here in Spokane, 38 in Coeur d'Alene later today, 38 up in Sandpoint. It's just so warm, and with how warm it's been, it would just be very hard to get any sort of snow to accumulate without a significant system. And this one isn't it. As we head into the weekend, it does look much drier, and a possible storm Sunday, but I don't believe it.
All right, back to our big story now. As we mentioned, Congress voted to confirm President-elect Joe Biden's victory early this morning.
But that entire process was delayed for hours after a mob of Trump supporters put the U.S. Capitol in lockdown. You can see those images here on your screen, and according to CBS News, the violence began shortly after some Republicans objected to the electoral count. The Washington, D.C. National Guard was deployed in response to the riots. It's the first time the U.S. Capitol has been breached in 200 years.
Incredible new video to show you. Take a look inside the Capitol building now. Photos obtained by Reuters show the aftermath of the riots. You can see broken windows, overturned furniture, and scattered papers. After the riots, the mayor of D.C. issued a curfew. It went into effect at 6 p.m. Eastern Time and was lifted 12 hours later. The mayor also ordered a public emergency for the city. It will last a total of 15 days. This allows her to issue another curfew at any time, among other options to ensure any violence is stopped.
4 people died in yesterday's riots. One of them was shot by U.S. Capitol Police, and the others reportedly died during medical emergencies. 14 police officers were hurt, and at least 52 people were arrested throughout the day. Police also reported that they had discovered 2 pipe bombs, one each outside of the Democratic and Republican national committees.
At least 4 people who work in the White House resigned following violent protests at the Capitol, including Stephanie Grisham, who was most recently the First Lady's chief of staff. Grisham was also one of Trump's longest aides, serving as the White House press secretary, but never held a press briefing.
Now, after the riots, Congress resumed its voting on the Electoral College. Senator Mitch McConnell promptly vowed that the Senate would finish its work undeterred by what he called a failed insurrection. Members of Congress affirmed President-elect Joe Biden's victory around 1 a.m. this morning, and that decision came after a series of debates which rejected 2 objections to electoral votes from the states of Arizona and Pennsylvania. And amidst all of the chaos, that word insurrection was trending across social media all day throughout the day. Dictionary.com defines that word insurrection as, quote, an act or instance of rising in revolt, rebellion, or resistance against civil authority or an established government. And an insurrectionist is someone who rises up against a government.
Early Wednesday, President Trump told the mobs it was time to go home, but continued his attacks on the 2020 election.
We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens.
Trump's Twitter account was locked after posting this video to his supporters. Early this morning, the White House released a statement from President Trump saying, though he disagrees with the outcome of the election, he promised an orderly transition on January 20th. Almost simultaneously, President-elect Joe Biden made this speech.
At their best, the words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite. To storm the Capitol, to smash windows, to occupy offices, the floor of the United States Senate, rummaging through desks, on the Capitol, on the House of Representatives, threatening the safety of duly elected officials. It's not protest, it's insurrection.
Vice President Mike Pence made these comments when Congress returned to continue their vote count.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. May God bless all who serve here and those who protect this place. And may God bless the United States of America. Let's get back to work.
Mike Pence joined a growing list of longtime supporters breaking from the president by publicly stating the 2020 election was over.
Closer to home, hundreds of Trump supporters swarmed the Washington state capitol in Olympia. A group of people managed to bust through the gate to the governor's mansion while Governor Inslee and his wife were locked down inside. Now, for most of the day, these protests were peaceful. Demonstrators played music, chanted, and made speeches. But around 3 p.m., that's when things changed. As Washington State Patrol say, a group of paraders pushed their way past the governor's security gate and made it within inches of Inslee's front steps before troopers were able to regain control. Governor Inslee and his wife, Trudy, remained safely inside the house, and protesters did not breach the inside of the building.
Trudy and I are doing well at the governor's residence tonight. We're just fine. Thanks for people who've shown some concern.
Luckily, there were no injuries and no damage other than that broken gate. No arrests were made. WSP, though, is now putting additional safety plans in place for when the legislative session resumes on Monday. Tana Marie.
Local leaders have made statements about the attack. In a statement, Kathy McMorris Rogers, a Spokane representative, denounced the rioters. She said, quote, "What we have seen today is unlawful and unacceptable. I have decided I will vote to uphold the Electoral College results, and I encourage Donald Trump to condemn and put an end to this madness." And Spokane Mayor Nadine Woodward also released a statement about the mob. She said, "We watched with great disappointment and heavy hearts the violence and disruption today at the U.S. Capitol building. Freedom of speech and expression are hallmarks of our country, and violence and property destruction have no place in that process. This was a sad day for our country." She continued on to say, "As members of our community, we feel compelled to respond to the national conversation or make their voices heard. Spokane expects that it will be done respectfully, peacefully, and appropriately."
And a rally also happened in Spokane, but it was much different than those we've seen at the national and state capitals. Coming up this morning, we spoke with local leaders and demonstrators about yesterday's event and what they say they hope to accomplish.
And now there is a plan to reopen schools for 3rd through 5th grade students. In our next half hour, their plan to get students in the classroom by March.